Hi guys, Paul Gold here, and a quick video for you today, but let me give you some background. Basically, I've been working with a female player, lady player, club player, and we've been doing some coaching and some information sharing across the internet. And the basic premise behind her story is this. She was an enthusiastic club player at her club, played in some club doubles, club sessions, etc., but was pretty enthusiastic about improving and a pretty competitive animal. So she wanted to branch out and get better, and I encouraged her to go and find some of the people in her group and in her kind of close circle to go and play some singles with. And we targeted some people who I knew would certainly give her some trouble. Yeah. So she'd gone out, started playing with these people, and the first few results were, played well, but was losing. And to cut a long story short, she went through a period of losing to people, getting closer, beating them, and then we'd identify someone else, get closer or get beaten, get closer, beat them. So great progression to the point where she's played someone I didn't think she would actually beat this quickly, but like I said, at first she played this other lady, lost to her quite convincingly, played okay though, then got closer, then split sets, and now beat her last week, and again this week has beaten her in a 6-2, 6-2 match. So to me, great progress. But what has that got to do with you? Well, what I've decided to do is to give you the diagram. I've videoed the diagram I drew out for her. Yeah, it was a way that we could get her game into a bit more focus so she could see where it was and where it was going, and actually just revisit it on a basis that she could just go round and round and continually improve. So what I've done is I've videoed or reconstructed that diagram and videoed it for you, because I think you could use that. Well, I hope you could use it. So the video is about 10 minutes long. It walks you through all the steps that you need to take and certainly consider in terms of improving your game at whatever level you're at. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please leave me a comment below just to let me know that this is the kind of thing you like, this is the kind of thing that you find useful, and I'm happy to do lots more stuff like this for you. So watch the video, enjoy it, like I say, leave a comment, and we'll talk soon. So Winning Tennis 101, this is what you guys should be doing to get yourselves in the game and winning more matches. So let's get started. Like I said, the whole basis of this whole thing is you've got to keep the game simple, because when people don't keep the game simple, they complicate the process. And what happens when you complicate it? Well, two main things. And these are the things I explained, and this is exactly what was happening. You complicate the game, it leads to indecision, also leads to confusion on the court, and there's only one thing that happens after that: increased errors. You start giving away points unnecessarily, and that's how you lose. So the number one rule of winning tennis for me, it's pretty simple. The rules actually say it. You need to hit one more ball in the court than your opponent does. It's as simple as that. The rules actually say that the winner of the point is the last person to hit the ball in the court. It doesn't say who's actually hitting a winner at 300 miles an hour. It just says the last person to hit the ball in the court is going to be the winner. It says it in the rules. Please listen to what they're saying. So the 80-20, Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. Massive. This is huge. This applies to nearly everything you can think of, and I'm sure many of you have come across it before. And what does it mean for you tennis players? 20% of your game will produce 80% of your success. And I'm telling you, it's basically the 20%, the simple stuff. Get the simple stuff in order, and that will deal with 80% of your game and your success. And we can then add on the other stuff afterwards. So let's look at the winning tactics that we put in place. Now, the first one was what I call trim the fat. Now, most people, if you think about it, trim the fat is basically a way of just saying get rid of all the excess, get down to the nitty gritty. So trim the excess was simple things that we looked at and that you need to look at. Things like getting rid of unforced errors. If you can reduce unforced errors, you see a huge upturn in your results, because suddenly you're not giving away silly points. Now, how do you reduce unforced errors and trim the fat? Simple things like consciously try not to hit the ball in the net. Simple as that. You'd be surprised how easy that is to do and what a big impact that can have on your game straight away. So first principle is you've got to sit down and think about how you can trim the fat off your game. Principle number 2, Space Invader and not Space Cadet. Now, most people know what a Space Cadet is. A Space Cadet is a simple person in terms of, they're not very intelligent and they're a bit airheaded, etc. You don't want to do that. You want to become the Space Invader. And what does that mean? Play the ball in the spaces on the court. Most people tend to play the ball back to their opponent like it's some kind of drill. Now, that could also be the fault of coaches that they have, who just place too much emphasis on playing the ball back with them, and you actually learn to hit a good ball to and from your coach. But you need to start exploiting the spaces on the court. Think about it. It's much harder for your opponent to hit forceful shots against you if they're having to move to the ball and run to the ball. The more often you can hit the ball in the spaces, the harder it is for them to hit winners, and the more in control of the point you will be. Agassi was an absolute master at this. He used to just sit inside on the baseline, just inside, and just move the ball side to side. Think of also the effect that was going to have physically. You got someone moving all over the court, running side to side just to play the rally ball back. What effect is that going to have over a 3 or even a 5-set match if you played one? Principle 3, you got to grasp the geometry of the court. So what does that mean? Apart from utilizing the space, what I'm saying to you here is you've got to think about court position. Most people wrongly think that after hitting a ball, if they're not standing still, and that's one thing you've really got to get out of the habit of, but one thing you've got to do is you need to get into a good court position for your next shot, and that does not mean going back to the center of the court. You need to position yourself in the center of all the possible angles from where your opponent is playing their shot. Now, a very, very simple rule of thumb to remember is generally you need to be going back towards the center, but stopping and finishing up on the same side of the court as you hit the ball. So if you've moved over towards the advantage court, the left hand side of the court, to play a shot, and you're retreating back towards the center, you actually stop and slow down when you're on that side of the court. Now obviously it depends on where the shot is and where your opponent is, because obviously when you're coming back you should be doing a split step to stop and ready yourself for the next shot. And don't forget, your recovery starts when you've hit your shot, not when the opponent has hit theirs. Number 4 is empower the weapon. Now this was a big one, because the lady I'm talking about has got a great forehand, but what does she do? Too often she was playing the backhand. So we had to work pretty hard on some simple basic court positioning so that she could get the forehand into play more often. Now, what you need to do is actually work out what your weapon is. And it doesn't have to be a particular shot, it could be a tactic. You could be a really good volleyer. Well, if that's the case, you need to be getting your volley into the game as often as possible. The lady I'm talking about had a good forehand. She was playing balls up the center on her backhand. She was moving, she's right-handed, so she was moving over to the right of the court slightly to play central balls on her backhand. Crazy. With a slight change of court position, I got her to stand slightly left of centre when she was in a rally position. That enabled her to get her forehand into play much more often, and that's what we've seen this week causing the most trouble for her opponent, and that's caused the 6-2, 6-2 win. Now, following on from that, number 5 is you've got to push the pain. You've got to identify where the pain spots are for your opponent. What shots or what tactics are they weak at? You need to be pushing them as hard as you can. So, if they've got a weak backhand, for instance, you need to be playing a high percentage of shots to their backhand. And again, I know everyone's watching this thinking, well, that's simple. It is simple, but all this stuff is simple, but people just don't do it. So, number 5, push the pain. Following on from that, we moved on to looking and developing these tactics inside the 5 phases of the game, and I've called it the 5 phases formula. Bit of a, I know it's an intentional misspell of formula, I know that, but it kind of gave it a good ring. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. I think there's a lot of useful stuff there for you, and I hope you found it useful as well. So, what are you going to do with it? Well, the way to approach it, like I was saying, is to basically start at the very beginning, pick out one of the first options that you've got to look at, and start working it into your game. Then, as soon as you've successfully worked that into your game, then drop down and do the next one, and so on. Please don't try and do it all at once, because you just diminish the effectiveness of the whole system. But what can you do with that? Well, what I've decided to do is I also have some drills and some considerations for you to actually implement this stuff on the court. Stuff that you can actually take away and practice on in a practical way, all these situations and setups that I've just talked about and that you've just seen in the video. So what I've done is I've decided to put that on my Beat All the Tennis Players You Want special report. Now, if you don't know what that is, I wrote that a while ago. A lot of people have really loved it, and it's basically an introduction to tennis strategy and tennis match play, in as much as it really gets you to think and use your head on the court. Now, I say it's an introduction, but don't think that it's just for beginners, because it isn't. It's really for players of all levels, but it's not real high-level strategy. It's the real basics that you really need to be nailing, and it's the kind of stuff that most people don't do on a regular basis. So what I've got is I've got that report, which I used basically as the basis for players of all levels. I worked with a little junior player, coaching from the age of 8 through to a national ranking, junior ranking, through to a European ranking, through to a world ITF ranking when he went off to go and play at Bollettieri full time. I also implemented a lot of this stuff working with some ATP players on the Challenger Tour and even the WTA Tour, with players ranked as high as just inside the world top 200. But don't think it's just for the pros, because I also use the same basic formula for players at all club levels, just the same as the club I'm at now. Players who then went on to win singles and doubles titles at their own club, and even to the point where we're talking about this lady who's playing at her club and getting the same information and then working it through with me and seeing some great success. So we've got that. So it's applicable to players of all level. I'm giving you the full video. You've just seen some of it. I'm going to give you the full video where we script out and map out the success path, if you like. And like I say, I've also got some drills that you need to be doing, match play scenarios for you to practice this stuff, because that's almost the missing link. One is to go and read it and try and put it in, but I tell you how to put it into your game, how to set up little match play scenarios for you to practice this stuff, so you can take it off with your practice partners or with your buddies that you play with on a regular basis. You can say, hey, let's just try this. Yeah, even if they're not involved in how they're working their game forward, you are, and they'll really enjoy the drills. So you've got that, plus a whole heap of other bonuses and free stuff. So if you're interested, please check it out, have a look. The link is down below the video. Please check it out at in your own time, your own convenience. And like I say, if you like this video, please leave me a comment below. Hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Just let me know if this is the kind of thing you want to see more of, and I'll gladly do it for you. And finally, like I say, if you're interested in getting the whole thing, beatallthetennisplayersyouwant.com. The link is below. Check it out. Have a look at what's involved, the PDF, the videos, the drills, everything, and see if it's for you. I know it's going to make a big difference in your game. As always, to your best tennis, success, and beyond. Take care. Speak soon.